Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Deal with Vehano Joseph. This is a show dedicated to all levels of entrepreneurs looking to scale and improve their lives. So let's dive on in with our next guest. Hello, Beyond the Deal Nation. Welcome back to another episode where we dive into the strategies, lessons, and insights that help entrepreneurs, investors, and business leaders scale, invest, and create long-lasting success. Today, I'm excited to welcome Jon Lopez, the driving force behind Blom Capital, firm specializing in real estate investing, capital markets, and wealth building strategies. Jon has built a strong reputation in the private equity and investment management space, helping investors navigate market shifts, deploying capital effectively, and build sustainable wealth through real estate investing. In this episode, we'll be discussing Jon's journey in real estate investing and private equity, the current market landscape and what investors need to know, strategies for deploying capital wisely and scaling portfolios, the mindset needed to build generational wealth through investing. So, if you're an investor, entrepreneur, or someone looking to break into the real estate and capital market space, this episode is jam packed with valuable insights. Jon, welcome to the show.
Vehano, thank you so much for having me on your show, man. It's an honor, man.
It's a honors all mine, and Jon, let's just get into that journey. I love to hear about people's stories, and I love these platforms for that. So, what led you, to join or be a part of Blom Capital?
Wow. So Bloom Capital,
Yeah.
it's actually a result. It's a faith-based group. So it started from our men's discipleship group, and as well as some of the members, because I live out here in Las Vegas, and some of our members they went on a trip to Tijuana, Mexico, to build houses for the organization called Addicted to Life. And so this was like a couple years ago. But before that, myself, my wife, and my partner Anthony. So my wife's Tony Rose, and my partner Anthony. We had a company called Nine Doors Down, and yeah, we started off, doing little joint ventures. Our first property was a 9-unit property in Tucson. We've already exited since. We've done a GP, co-GP deals, but we didn't start to find our stride until we started doing the fund to fund model. So we established a fund, and it was a result of being oversubscribed on a 439 unit self storage deal in Galveston, Texas. So that property closed in early of 2022. We had nearly $1 million, but we didn't have an asset. We weren't underwriting anything. And so my partner Anthony comes up with a great idea. It was like, hey, let's start a fund. Let's take that capital and let's reach out to an operator where we both individually invested as a limited partner before Nine Doors Down even formed, and we were able to negotiate a higher pref, greater splits that favored the LPs. But we didn't know the term fund of funds, man. We just saw it as an avenue to grow our capital as well as our investors. You know, we did probably like 10 deals for this major operator in Phoenix, as well as is now in the Dallas and the North Carolina markets. But we started educating others how to start their own fund, how to market themselves, how to
Awesome.
build up that investor pipeline. And then they took our partners. So everyone in Bloom Capital is my partners in previous deals. So as far as the acquisitions of property management, our CEO, CFO, as well as experience of like having our own credit card portal. So we all just kind of like saw an opportunity. It's like, hey, we have an opportunity to combine forces like transformers and give an institutional environment to fund managers, as well as family offices and other wealth
Yeah.
offices and dealer brokers and whatnot. But yeah, it's kind of cool that we now get to control our levers where they used to be loss centers, and now we view them as profit centers.
That's amazing. I love that. So you guys took an opportunity to where you were getting oversubscribed. You had built up that track record. You had investors that were coming, hey, where's the next deal? And you created a vehicle for them to deploy capital, and that way also gave you guys the leverage to be in the driver's seat on some of these deals. Like that are juicy, and you made them even juicier. Love that. Love
Yeah,
that.
and at that time, like, I didn't know the term fund of funds, and then now
Yeah.
you start to hear more and more of it. But
Yeah.
that was kind of like exactly what we did.
What's crazy is, what people don't realize that you're a fund of funds when you're investing in your 401k, and there's a wealth manager up in Wall Street that they are allocating capital to different strategies. So that's a fund of funds, and they invest in other people's funds and things like
Vahano, I
that.
never
So,
thought of it that way, dude.
yep,
Thank
yep.
you. I like
That's
that.
exactly what it is. I have
Yeah,
my limited experience on Wall Street, but I have a lot of capital markets experience. That
yeah,
is a strategy that just it can go good, it can also go bad, but and also the nice thing is you're diversifying that capital into different investments, I would imagine, right? So
yeah. Yep.
um
Doing the due diligence with an
yeah.
operator. That's really what it boils down to.
Okay, okay, yeah. You mentioned what was your first deal? It sounds like, was it the 9 unit or?
Are you talking about real estate in general or
Yeah,
multifamily?
yeah, let's go whatever. Real estate and multifamily, like, I look at these things as together, right? They may
Yeah,
just be a different avenue, but at the end of the day, it's all about that first deal, that first step that you take. You're right. Like, it's nerve-wracking, right? I remember my first deal, and it was like, I don't know if this is the right thing, but boom, now you're in.
yeah,
So tell us about that.
yeah. We'd have to flash back to 2009.
Okay.
So I was managing AT&T stores in out in Los Angeles,
Okay.
and we all know what happened in 2008, right?
Yeah.
I had no idea what real estate was. I had no idea that it appreciates over time. I had no idea what property management was. I had no idea about anything. The only reason why me and my wife we took money out of our own Ks is because my parents they told me they're like, I think how much money do you have in your 401k? I think you should buy a house.
Yeah.
That was
Right.
it, Vahano. So we
Yeah.
did. So we did a FHA loan. The property was like 317,000 in Carson, California. But immediately, even before closing on the property, which happened to be July 10th, 2009, the same day my oldest daughter was born. Myself and my wife, we were signing closing docs with a notary in the hospital
In the
just
hospital.
hours just after Tony gave birth to Desi. But even before the closing process, we were already immediately thinking, how can we lower our expenses, lower our mortgage? I didn't know the term house hacking, but that's exactly
Yeah.
what we did. We rented out a couple rooms to family, and
Yeah.
then fast forward to like 2011, 2012. I'm originally from the Bay Area, so my father had his first round of cancer, and we decided let's go move up to the Bay just for a year, just to be with my dad. But during that time, I learned how to leverage a property manager. I already knew that I wasn't smart enough to handle the own property. I already knew I didn't have the bandwidth for it. So I was like, okay, 8%, that sounds like a deal to me. And but because of that, I learned how to leverage other people's talents. And
Mm.
because I was
Oh, that's
leveraging their
huge.
talents, I'm now learning about rental comps in the area.
Mm.
I'm learning, wow, I bought that home for 317 in 2 years. It's already up to like 400,000. How? Why? And I was
Yeah.
uneducated. I didn't know.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. That resonates with me because when I started, I had done the same, something similar. I didn't house hack, but I looked at what is my first investment going to be, and like, I'm working a corporate job at the time, right? I'm like a pretty high up corporate job, and I'm like, I don't have time to be taking calls from people. I want to be as anonymous as possible and whatever. So then I was like, okay, how do I do this? And I was like, okay, property manager. Started talking to people that become my mentors and that had done it before me, and kind of laid out that path. But I started with a duplex, and had a property manager, learned the ropes, got that data. That's so important. What you just highlight, you have the ground data, not the online stuff, but the real stuff that's happening in the neighborhood.
Vahano, you hit it right on the
Yeah.
nail, man. Like I host a lot of meetups here in Vegas, and I always tell people, don't be so much of a student that you're continuously always learning that you don't take that first
Take
risk.
action. Take
You got to
action.
take that first action because now you start to apply the real lesson. It's not hypothetical. And you're gonna be making money along the way. And if you partner up with the right people, you have multiple eyes on the
Yeah.
asset that everybody has a best interest in it.
It's like built-in mentorship and security with partners, right? The right
Yeah,
partners, obviously, it's a joy to be around, and that's important too.
very much.
Amazing. So that leads me to my next question. What's one of the biggest challenges you faced, in the early real estate days, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so I would have to say fast forward to so we moved out to Las Vegas in September of 2021. And at this point I was a sales director for this cell phone accessory distributor in Southern California. And prior to our move, we actually got bought out by a larger distributor, right? So it was, we're 1 year into the new entity, excuse me. And New Year's Eve going into 2022, we're only here in Las Vegas for a few months. We've already started investing in our 9 unit property, and then as well as a self storage. You know, my sales department as well as the warehouse department. It was probably like 15 of us. We hop on a call on New Year's Eve, and I always remember it clearly. It was around like 9:30 in the morning. It was a
Mm.
Friday, and I thought it was going to be, hey, great job this year. Let's take some time to relax. Let's hit 2023 strong, right? We get laid off. Few months, just a few months into Las Vegas. It's our first New Year's Eve here, first New Year's Day. So I remember just faking it till I make it
Yeah.
that weekend, and I was feeling bummed out during the weekend. I'm like, what am I going to do next? I knew back in my mind, I was like, I do sales. I know I could get a job fairly easily. Probably the next 30, 60 days, I could land something. But something told me dive into Nine Doors Down, pour into it, and see what happens. Right. So, me and my wife, we agreed that I was gonna dive in. She's also a real estate agent out here in Las Vegas, so she was gonna take care of the liquid, and I was gonna take care of the long term equity. That was I was forced to change my mindset that very moment.
I was just about to say that's a huge mindset shift. Like taking that opportunity, guys, taking that negative situation, turn it into a positive, right? Framing your mind into a situation like, hey, this is an opportunity to go down, and that voice, that comes from God, right? That little voice inside that gave you that confidence.
I
What
remember
an
waking up that
amazing,
morning. It was on a Tuesday. That Tuesday after that Friday, and I looked at
yeah,
myself in the mirror. I'm like,
wow,
what am I gonna do? And rather than feeling defeated, I looked at myself. I was like, let's go all in. Excuse my
yeah,
language, but I was like, fit John, let's
yeah,
go in.
yeah,
Let's just see what happens. I could always get a sales
yeah,
W-2. I already know that.
yeah.
And one thing kind of led to another, Vehano, and in God's glory, I'm still here.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. I love that. I think it's just everybody needs to get to that point where you can back yourself. You have all the abilities. God has set you up for all the situations in your life. I think it's just sometimes we let other voices in our head kind of, dissuade us from taking that action, and it's so important to just shut
Yeah,
those voices up and go for it because
yeah.
I mean, you don't want to be laying on your deathbed and saying, "What if I did something?" Right? Like, nah. So I love that. I love that. And, from a real estate and capital markets and strategy standpoint, it sounds like you guys are invested in various types of real estate. Sounded like storage units. Sounded like multi. Um,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
on the Nine Doors downside, we do have well, actually two self storage properties, one in Galveston,
yeah,
one in Baton Rouge, and then a lot of it was just joint ventures and GPs on large multifamily, but as well as a lot of fund to funds. So we're LPs, but with a
yeah,
greater pref, greater splits. But as far as Bloom Capital, it's strictly large multifamily, like 150 units and up. We'll be in 15 states in 10 years. But our first zone that we're tackling is the Dallas Fort Worth area. Our CEO Joe, we built it out like an enterprise. It's literally a plug and play system. We're going to get to 4,200 units in Dallas, but as soon as we hit 2,000 units in that area, we now get to open up the second zone, which is another city in Texas, and we just keep opening up zones. You know, each zone to at least 4,000 units, but as soon as we're halfway, open up the next one, and it's just a plug and play, plug and play.
yeah. That's the factors that you got to consider behind scalability. What are the key factors you guys look at when you're deploying capital? So you're investing in a deal or fund of funds, or what
Yeah,
are the key things?
I'll speak on the fund of a fund side because that's the vehicle where that got us to where we are today, where I'm now part of a vertically integrated enterprise. But the key thing is well, there's a few. So one is you have a pitch deck, is what I always say. You don't need to have a specific deal, but as long as your potential investors understand your story, the direction where you're going, what's your asset class, whether you're flipping, whether you're doing venture capital, whether you're doing multifamily, define that, what territories you're looking into, and what are the minimum returns that you have for your investors. So that way you could take that pitch deck, maybe it could be a 30-minute to an hour presentation over Zoom, but maybe you know that pitch deck so well like the back of your hand, which has happened to me before, Vehano. I'm at a meetup. I'm literally in the bathroom urinal. Someone is asking me about Nine Doors Down, and I give a condensed version of my pitch deck in like
Yeah,
30, 45 seconds.
yeah,
But you're always
yeah,
talking about the vehicle. And now, once a potential investor understands your fund philosophy, your asset class, your story, your mission, your purpose, and all that, when you finally present a deal, they'll be more inclined to invest into that deal because they already understand it fit that buy box for that fund, for fund, whatever the name is. And
yeah,
then on top of that, you also got to build relationships with operators who've had several exits, who you know that their distributions are, maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's monthly, maybe it's a development and it's just a big pop in 2 years, but they have a clear monthly reporting that they're cascading down to the fund manager, which the fund manager can cascade down
the
to the
investors.
retail investor, which
Yeah,
is the same thing as a GP and LP. It's just the main difference is, with syndications, you identify asset, and now
yeah,
you're racing. Sometimes you have anxiety raising capital in the next 30, 60, 90, 180 days. Whereas the fund model it's just reverse on the first two sides. You're always building relationships. Then you're able to pull the trigger on an asset whenever you identify it.
yeah.
That's the main difference.
So you're basically building up dry powder, getting getting your investors to understand your investment philosophy and strategy, and then deploying that capital when a deal fits that buy box effectively, right? Or
Yeah,
the partners, affiliate partners bring in deals.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
awesome, awesome.
yeah. Because
And tell me, what are, you mentioned something that I thought was very cool. And a lot of first time real estate syndicators or first time real estate operators struggle with this piece, but what is an effective way of building that network? How have you come to successfully build that network out?
that's the that's a forever challenge with any organization, no matter what business, right? So I come from the sales background as being store manager of AT&T. Eventually, at least in our case, like you understand your buy box, you understand the business model, right? Eventually the real estate hat comes off and it becomes sales and marketing. Like
Sales.
how, like just because I see a Coca-Cola billboard driving down the freeway, it doesn't mean that I'm going to go out and buy a bottle of Coca-Cola or a 12 pack or a 2 liter, but I
Yeah,
know that next time I go into a 7-Eleven and I want a sugary drink, there is a
that's
brand
right.
called Coca-Cola where I could pick it up because it's just brand recognition. And it's just repeated marketing, and in real estate, a lot of the marketing is educational. So you're
Mm,
you're throwing out it, whether it's on social media, whether you put together an ebook or even your own pitch deck, it's still educational.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
building
Love
value
that.
and providing value for others.
And so would you advise a newbie, a new investor to create that pitch deck and start sharing that?
100%. Like I always tell people, like you don't even need to have a fund to have a pitch deck, but
Yeah,
you need to outline your vision, your purpose, your asset. You got to know it so much so that way you could extend it to an hour and a half presentation if you wanted to, or you know it so much that maybe you're rearranging the order of the pitch deck to cater to that personality. Or
yeah,
maybe you meet someone at a basketball game or your son's basketball game, and now it's a condensed one
yeah.
minute elevator pitch.
Yeah, yeah. Know your elevator pitch. Know your elevator. It's a 2 minute. Hey, your story, your vision, your purpose, and how you can help
Yeah,
others deploy capital. Yeah.
I mean, it kind of sucks. Like I always ask myself, like, it kind of sucks that people always ask, like, so what do you do for a living, right? It's that
Yeah.
question always pops up. That's an elevator pitch right there.
Yep.
On
Yep.
Bloom Capital, we're a vertically integrated enterprise. We invest in apartments, 150 units or more, where we could 2x our capital in 3, 5, 7
Excellent.
years. That's it. And
Yeah.
then if they're really tuned in, and if they do have the investor mindset, they're gonna have follow up questions. But
Yeah.
all I did was just plant the seed without being intrusive and without having to, just sound like a cheesy salesman.
No hard sale, just hey, this is what we do, and yeah, if they're interested. I'm curious, as a salesperson, you're used to getting the no's and all of that, which is important. I like to highlight to my students, like, hey, if you don't have the no's, you're wasting your time. You want to get to those no's quickly so you can move on to the next person that may be a yes or a big yes. So the longer you waffle around with somebody and they're not serious, I would love to hear your take on it. I always say the deal's not done until the money is in escrow, right? That soft commitment,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
means nothing.
no. Yes, as soon as it's wired, now it's official. So I've always lived by that. So like this was in like in days even before real estate. Like I always followed by the three no's. I let them
Mm,
tell me no three times on three different occasions before I'm like, okay, we'll just put that in that's a cold lead. But you know what? I'll touch. They're on our email list anyways. They're following us on
yeah.
social media, so they're gonna see our content. But those no's, man, it's a learning opportunities because it makes you a much better, smarter person to understand your product. And then, for example, if I'm presenting to someone with like a public relations background versus an engineer background
Yeah.
or a doctor background, I already
Yeah.
know that the engineer and the maybe not so much with the doctor, but I know for a fact that engineer, they like to reverse engineer things. So
Yeah, they want to see the
their
numbers.
questions are gonna be so different compared to someone with like a communications background or
Yeah.
journalist background.
Yeah.
So
So
those no's are going to be different. And I know with me, when I'm facing that situation, I always bring my partner Anthony with me, or I
mm,
bring in someone who's a part of acquisitions, a part of Bloom, so that way I know that they're gonna start peeling back the onion and asking questions that I may not be able to address.
yeah, that's wonderful. That's yeah. So that's a good tip. I think having, if you're not the construction person or the person that's in charge of the renovations, then have that partner with you. Have that person on there, so you're not just in the firing line by yourself.
Yeah,
When those questions come through. Yeah, that's a
yeah.
valuable tip, guys. A valuable tip. Bring the whole team. When you're doing those detailed next level discussions, and that's probably after a few no's, till you get to that level.
There's no
I want,
losses, only lessons.
yeah, I love that. That's a wonderful mindset. Just take it as a data point, right? And use that for the future. Um, I wanted to get your outlook on kind of where the market is and kind of where we're at. We've got a new regime in place now. What are you guys' outlook?
Man, what's so I'm a part of this Canadian mastermind as well called Wealth Genius. And when the tariffs all thing, when Trump dropped it, we used it as an education moment for ourselves. Like we start to forecast, like, well, how is this going to impact real estate on the Canadian side, investing into the U.S. So for those that don't know, like you don't see double digit IRRs in Canada. So that's why a lot of them they like to invest into the U.S. Like if they see a 12 to 15% IRR, that's gold, man. And they don't have 30-year mortgages. Like it's like 3 to 5 years at a time. And yeah, it's amortized, but things are shifting all the time, and it's coming from a socialist back country, right?
Yeah,
But as far as outlooks, nobody knew that rates were gonna jump to like 7, 8%. Like raising capital in 2021 and 2022 was a lot different. Money was cheaper back then,
yeah,
right? So right now, then raising capital in the last 2 years, it's been really more of a challenge. But there's still dry powder that's sitting out there. As on the fund manager capital raising side of things, don't ever start marketing. I mean, don't ever stop marketing. still come out with educational component. It's an opportunity for you to educate others. Like, hey, now I'm educating Canada. Now is the best time you want to invest into the U.S. Japan is about to invest another what do they announce, 1 or 2 trillion
It was
into the
insane.
U.S. Right? Saudi Arabia.
Big money is coming in, yeah.
What I see with this administration is, at least this is what I hope, that we start bringing manufacturing into the U.S. We're now creating wealth rather than being consumers and like just having to rely on other countries for manufacturing. Right now, I'd like to say it's short-term pains for the longer picture, not just
Yeah.
real estate.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think I resonate with that, and my outlook on kind of the macroeconomic standpoints, and seeing a North American manufacturing pull back, like pulling that back to the US. We've seen this before, guys. Like when I used to work in large corporate entities where when they lower the tax rates, all that money comes back into the country, right? And that infrastructure that needs to be built gets built. And so we'll see expansions, and I think the good and the ugly of COVID was we had an expansion of the supply chain in anticipation of that continued demand, and then the demand got sucked out of the economy. So now you've got this expanded supply chain just waiting to absorb any higher demand. So yeah, seeing these trillions of dollars flowing back, or commitments to flow back to the US, is it's really exciting time. And yeah, I think manufacturing in the US again, I think is going to be key to just solving our middle class, and making
Yeah,
sure people
yeah,
get back to it, right?
yeah. It's
I'm curious. I'm curious to hear. Have you? And this is probably not real estate related, but one of the shifts that I'm seeing is a lot of people that used to go to university are now, going to the trades, and where it's needed, right? I'm quite excited to see that shift, because one thing I've noticed in like countries like New Zealand, if you're a plumber, you're like in super high demand, because none of those people wanted to go to trade school. They just want to get their finance degrees like I did, and not the main
Man,
street things.
I love you
What's your
brought that
view?
up, Ano. So outside of real estate, some of the side things that on the nine doors down side of things is, we're actually raising just a small amount of capital for this operator who's buying HVAC companies and
Mm,
electric companies from these. It's like a value add multifamily strategy. You
yeah,
find an
doesn't the same
operator
thing.
who's been around since 1985. His kids don't want to take it over. They're still using spreadsheets. There's maybe not a lot of online presence, right? But I see certain verticals where when it comes to marketing stuff and operations, we're going to be leaning on AI. Because if you're not taking advantage of AI, you're going to be left behind. But there's certain stuff like you can't when they fix the air conditioning on a
You
single
need,
family house. I'm not even talking about a 150 unit property.
yeah,
You need that manpower that's coming
yeah,
in to
yeah.
fix it. And so as an investor, we see that. I was like, you know what? Those talents, that's going to be the gold in the future because the pool is going to be less.
Smaller and smaller. Yeah,
It
it
gets
has been
smaller and
shrinking.
smaller. And also, but on the educational side of things, for those that's like taking up the trades, they're not exiting their education with piles of debt. They're
No,
not getting brainwashed by, and I'll just call it what it is. They're not getting brainwashed by the woke culture that's out there.
yeah,
So it's so yeah. I mean, here in Nevada, like, all my kids they play sports, right? So many of the parents homeschool their kids
yeah.
just on because of what has happened since COVID. Now with this new administration, things may improve a little bit, but regardless, a smart investor, it's like a coin. You have your conservative side, then you have your progressive side, but a smart investor, they're going to stand right in the middle and they're going to teeter totter on both sides.
Yeah, you want to read the
How,
room.
you got to read the
Exactly.
room, yeah. Regardless if you agree with a certain policy or not, you still got to read the
Right.
room.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, that's amazing. I think for those who have who are on the fence of deciding what to do, I mean, if you want to go create a pile of cash, I think the trades is probably where it's at, and you don't have to have mountains of debt, and it's just brutal. Some people have tremendous amount of just student debt that, materially, I don't know if they, will ever pay back. I'm sure they will over time, but
You
it's
enslave
going to be
yourself.
it's a long journey,
Yeah,
long
like
journey. So,
I went to Cal State Northridge, and then at that time we were on the semester system. It was like a grand per semester.
yeah,
Now I'm hearing it's like just in California alone. Like this was about a year ago. It's probably more now, but it's like 4 grand a semester,
sheesh. Yeah.
and you're just piling on debt, and then and it
You're
makes you,
hoping,
yeah, you're
hoping you
just
can,
hoping, and it puts you behind an 8 ball to just open up your eyes to become an entrepreneur and create your own.
yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about America, right? Like, I think, I'm originally from South Africa. Being America firsthand for the last 12 years has been, America's built on small businesses. That's what runs the economy. There's, you know, obviously the bigs and whatever.
Yeah.
The real main street is what drives our economy, and it employs our people and gets things done. When you get too big and bloated, then it's more bureaucratic, and nothing ever gets done.
Yeah, and then that's why, like, so I'm a first generation Filipino American, right? My parents immigrated here like in the 70s. And I don't think people realize the opportunities and how good it is here in this country. Is it gonna have, of course we're gonna have problems. It's not a perfect country, but I'd rather be here than any other spot in the world because I know there's opportunities as long as you see the entrepreneurial light.
Yeah. Yeah, and to each their own. If you want to be in a corporate gig, whatever, right? But eventually, sometimes if you're not careful, you'll end up in a situation where they can lay you off on New Year's Eve, like without you even knowing, right? That's just how it is. You have no control on your destiny. So if you don't have the opportunity to set your sail, then it's a good thing to consider how you get into that entrepreneurial mindset. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's awesome. I wanted to get back. Let's get back to real estate. Sorry, I took a bit of a dive there, but
Good.
when you think about scaling and managing your investment portfolio, what are some of the key things that, um, if you were a investor that maybe had one or two properties and you were looking at scaling to that next level, really trying to grow your portfolio, what are some of the things you guys have done?
Yeah, so because we were so heavy in the long-term equity plays, right? 5, 7 year holds and stuff, and before Bloom really started kicking off, like we started looking at raising capital for debt. So we
Hmm.
actually we partnered up with a very reputable house flipper, like a top high-end house flipper here in Las Vegas. And again,
Yeah,
we saw like, hey, this is an operator, kind of like how we had an operator in syndications. Let's leverage their talents. Let's inject their operations with capital. Because on as far as our investors, we had guys that were like investing. They're probably like on their second deal with us, right? Very long term.
yeah.
But when rates started increasing, they started looking for shorter plays, right? And
Hmm.
just to beat the inflation and the rates that they're facing in the banks. We learned, I was like, hey, let's open up a debt fund. It's going to be focused on gap lending, right? But we're able to negotiate like up to 20% for us, but I could still cascade even 12% down to our investors. So it gave our long-term equity investors another vehicle for short term, right? But it allowed us to introduce the equity side to the all the guys that we know that was funding the flips. So they had capital gains, right? So hey, you have that. Rather than getting taxed, why don't you take that PK? Now you invest it in a long-term equity play where now you get a K1, you get bonus distributions. So we got to educate both sides. So we provided quicker returns for our long-term guys, and then for our
Yeah.
shorter-term guys, we were able to provide tax benefits.
Yeah, yeah, that's a awesome strategy, and so guys, just to kind of repeat what you said, the strategy there was you have folks that are looking for shorter term returns, and so they had an investment vehicle in these flip guys that, so for example, let's say it takes 6 months to flip a house, and they put in X amount of dollars. That dollars now made more money in that flip because it was a profit. And instead of realizing that capital gains, they deferred that into, or just rolled that extra capital into something long term to then offset their gain with depreciation in the longer term fund. So,
Yeah.
we've got this concept of bonus depreciation, which, touch wood, I don't think it's going anywhere. There was
Yeah,
talks
I
of
hope it gets back to 100%, actually.
we need it back to 100%. I remember those good old days. They were really, really good for our industry, and really good for the investment in the industry. So yeah, we definitely hope that's it to stay. Really will boost our and we need people to come in and renovate things. We need people to convert things to the use case that it needs to be.
Create.
We need people to build the things that we need to build and not restrict that,
Totally.
which just
Totally.
causes these bubbles. So very, very cool.
And
What are
also,
some
like,
of the? Okay,
another
yeah,
thing, Vehano, like, so because we were such a younger fund, like, we focus on our sales and marketing on the long-term equity plays, right? But
yeah,
the reason why we didn't go heavy on marketing our debt side of things because we didn't want to water down our
yeah.
perceived
Offering,
buy box. So we
yeah,
actually only brought it up on a like a case by case scenario where we identify this was like, okay, this debt structure might be good for this client. That's why building relationships is the most important thing. It's not the money. Got to, like, get to know your investors, get to know their pain points, get to know, like, what are the things that they like. Is this person a little bit more of an aggressive investor, or is he more conservative? Like, or even like, hey, are they going through a divorce? Are they, are they just newly married, or whatever? You know, so we come from, our fund was B, and for those that don't know,
wow,
B, we could accept
non-accredited.
accredited and non-accredited, but we could not advertise our deals
Yeah,
unless we had a relationship. But now we're 506C. We still take on the 506B mentality of like, hey, relationships is more important. But Vihano, man, this is my first time raising for a 506C. It's so liberating because I'm now going on LinkedIn and just
yeah.
on all these other platforms, and like, here's the investment summary. It's great to meet you 5 minutes ago, but here are the returns now. But let's hop on a call. Let's really get to know one another.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a game changer when Trump, back in the first term, allowed 506c advertising. And guys, so what John's talking about is 506b is a exemption to not list your company on the public exchange, because when you're offering a security or an interest or something that earns money, that's a security. And so it falls in the gambit of securities laws. And so when that kicks in, the only way to issue a share is by going public. But so we have these exemptions that have been built in where you can do private transactions through a PPM, and your private investment has various legs, and the ones we use is 506b when you have a substantive relationship with a investor, potential investor, and there's different rules there. And then your 506c, like John was saying, you can go and advertise and put on a billboard. Doesn't mean that person's going to invest in your
Yeah,
deal. So
yeah,
don't forget that. You have to build a relationship. You have to establish that trust and get, what's the quickest way to that trust, and show them, that you're in alignment with their investing strategy. So whether it's short term or long term, it sounds like you've nailed both sides. So you can capture anybody looking to, either have a quick return if they're accredited, or a longer term play where you get the depreciation and the long term gains.
yeah, exactly. And you wouldn't know those things until you actually dive in. Like, it's one of those situations. Like, maybe I would not know what a 506B and a C was until I actually dove in as an individual LP.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's why I tell people, like, you always want to educate yourself, but don't be a full time student where you're not applying and taking the risks.
yeah. What do they call that?
You got to take action.
Analysis paralysis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Correct.
Amazing. I think we've touched on this, but building long-term wealth and really understanding what that is, it requires a certain type of mindset. What are some of the biggest mental shifts that you have to make to become an investor or entrepreneur? What do you think those are?
So, man, dude, you're asking someone who was in a warm and fuzzy, comfortable W2 box, man.
Yeah.
So for me, the redundancy of the boring stuff that sets you apart from those who are just trying it for like 6 months at a time, like Nine Doors Down, I developed a solopreneur mentality, right? So like, oh wow, now 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 I get to do these. I'll wake up at 8 in the morning. I'll have these social media ideas. Let's take the shotgun approach, and I don't know where it's going to land, but let's post it at like 11 o'clock or so, right? But as time moved on, I now lean on my marketing side, so they handle all that. I could just worry about just talking to people. But the boring stuff, man, of like it could be admin stuff, it could be just like the daily discipline of your schedule. Now, I like to wake up like at 6:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30. I got to get my morning prayer in. Get a morning prayer in. Try to get a workout in that morning, or if not later in the day. Me, I had a very strict schedule because while here in Las Vegas, the kids get out of school at 1:30. At least my daughter gets out of school at high school at 1:30, and then my other two is at 2 o'clock. I only had from like 7 in the morning to like 1 o'clock to really focus on like Nine Doors Down, and now it's Bloom. So I had to maximize those hours. So I had to condense everything, and then like then I could start entertaining, taking calls throughout the day. But now maybe I take a few calls after 4 o'clock or so.
Right.
But
Right.
then your responsibility as a father and as a husband comes into play. So you also got to play the balance where, yeah, you don't want to idolize your business, right? You're still serving God first, then your spouse, then your children, then your community,
Yeah.
then the business. So
Yeah.
I didn't have that at first, Vahano.
Yeah. No, and I didn't have that at first either. It took a lot of eye-opening situations for me to understand and grasp that relationship that you've got to have with God first before anything else, because you just don't have, it's not your plan, it's not your money, it's not your,
Yeah,
the more you lean into it, the more freedom you get, the more you start to realize that, hey man, this is God's plan. I'm just here to execute and be a good steward of his wealth. And
we're just a
you know
vehicle, man.
and yeah, yeah, and you can
Yeah,
do it. You have the power. Everything is
yeah.
there. You don't second guess yourself.
And now, so I didn't mention this earlier, but Bloom, so because now we're vertically integrated, we could take 4% off of our gross profit,
Yeah.
right? So on the credit card processing, the profits there, the construction, the property management and whatnot. And eventually, my software side of the team is working on a fund portal. So we're gonna have our own like a vestor or cash flow portal, but we're able to take 4% and give it to nonprofit community organizations, church organizations, like
Yeah.
in that market where we invest into. So
Love that.
it's actually our goal to be to be one of God's largest wallets.
I love that. I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. So, what's the future for Bloom? What's next? What's anything exciting in the pipeline? I think you touched on some there.
Yeah, man, we're so currently so we found this unicorn deal in Princeton, Texas, and if you could Google it, the city. So this developer went a couple years into development, spent 40 million, got it up to 50% construction before they went belly up. So
Wow.
one of
Okay.
the owners of that entity was going through a divorce, and just it got really sticky. They also made the project may have been too big for for their britches, and we actually acquired the property back on December 20th. So we're acquiring it for 20 million. But we're now raising 15 million for construction costs. So my channel is the Bloom Venture side, where I'm focused on fund manager relationships, as well as for those who want to start their own fund. We actually coach them up, because on the another side of Nine Doors Down, we had schoolofninedoorsdown.com, where we just taught people just how to raise capital, man, and just sales and
Amazing.
marketing. Build your pitch deck. So now we're rebranding Schools of Nine Doors Down to Bloom Ventures, and so
Mm.
we're developing a structure where we're offering our fund managers a 9% pref, 90-10 split, IRRs above 20%, annual above like 20% as well, because we get to control the levers. And we just want to, at least on my end, I want to provide an opportunity for others that they could be bigger than what Nine Doors Down has accomplished in the last few years, because you get to work with an operator who built, you're going to have the deal flow, and eventually they'll get to cherry pick if they want to raise for a Bloom deal, or for it might be one of your deals, Vehano. It might be one of Alex and Brody's deals with KGI Capital. Shout out to them, by the way, for introducing
Shout
us.
out to KJI. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
Alex and
you.
Brody,
Yeah.
man, they're good people. I've known them for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to provide that opportunity, and I know in the next year or two we're going to be going out to the college fairs, right? And just hey, you have an opportunity to be a fund manager, like because
Yeah.
in a way, in a different form, it's like it's kind of like a franchise. Like you get to lean on the operator, like on their deal flow, but we also make it also enticing. So at least for the first year while we're in operations, we introduce those guys and wants to start a fund to our in-house SEC attorney. We create their PPM, and dollar for dollar, as long as they raise 1 million for Bloom, we're going to reimburse them the cost of the PPM. And then from that point on, after that first million is raised, they can take their fund anywhere. But
That's
we hope to
awesome.
make it enticing, with our deals that hey, they still want to cherry pick. Maybe they raise a deal or two every year with us.
Such a cool idea. I think so. Just so for the listeners that don't understand this crazy world of private equity, what they're presenting is a way for you to become your own fund manager, but plug into the ecosystem with proven operators and proven people that you don't have to go and vet out. Learn from that experience and then apply that to your own investments, to your own operators as you grow your platform. Very, very cool.
And so our marketing team will white label the marketing on social media or even your pitch deck. So it's going to be your logo that's going to be showcased, not Bloom. It's going to be your logo because that's your relationships, your network, and we don't want to see your investors if done correctly. For a fund manager, the biggest power again is a network, the people in the fund. So
Yeah.
if the deal exits, the operator is not going to be able to bypass the so for example co-GPs, right? If a deal
Yeah.
exits, the operator could be like, oh, this co-GP brought in 8, 9, 10 investors. I could solicit to them on the next deal because that GP may be working on another deal, right?
Yeah.
But if those retail end investors are sheltered within a fund, as an operator, you could only speak to the
You're
to,
only
to the
speaking to
fund
the fund
manager.
manager. Yeah.
But on the operations side of things, it also streamlines things because we don't have to worry about the 9 investors, 10, or maybe 20 investors within that fund. We just issue one monthly reporting, one K1, and then they distribute it out amongst their
To
investors.
the investors. Yeah. Love that. John, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for this conversation and sharing your insights and experience with us. I really, really enjoyed it. For those who want to learn more about Bloom Capital and connect with you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, man. Oh, dude, we'll start off with shoot my social media and contact info. So my cell phone is area code 818-536-2121. Website is bloomcapital.com. My email is jlopez@bloomcapital.com. You could also find me on on the nine doors down, which is eventually going to be rebranded as Bloom Ventures in the next month or so, which you're going to see the big marketing. But you could
Yeah.
find us at Nine Doors Down. We also have our podcast, the Nine Doors Down Show, which means Vahana, I'm going to reach out to you after this. I want you to be
Yeah.
part of our podcast, and yeah, man, Bloom Capital on Instagram, BLOM Capital, same thing on LinkedIn, and yeah, we just want to grow with everyone, man.
Yeah, guys, check them out. Help them build the kingdom. This is a beautiful thing that they're presenting for those that are looking to become fund managers. The beauty of it that we didn't even discuss is that you don't necessarily have to be the one in the field dealing with the day to day of the operations of that property. You're just investing in a highly skilled operator, and you're gaining the fruits. So it's a very synergistic relationship. Well, amazing. John, thank you so much and have a wonderful day. And listeners, we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you, Vihano.